So imagine this. Imagine a world where people love to learn and grow, where differences are curiosity, and where we love to expand into new experiences. Imagine a world where people love to awaken to even more, like a garden blossoming in the sun. So let's do that tonight through the process of education. John told you I'm an educator, and what I do all day long is I help people resolve problems and live in the joyful solutions they create. And I do that through the process of education by helping people discover new choices and take new action. Now, the word education is a word that comes from the word educare, which means to draw forward out from within. So what I'm going to tell you tonight, you already know. You just may have forgotten. And that's okay. I'm here to be a catalyst for awakening, for a truth that lives inside of you that is present always, and for you to remember yourself back to it. So you can just imagine I'm up here and you're listening to yourself, the you that already knows, your inner knower, your inner wisdom. Does that sound okay with you? So I'm just like you. I'm human. I fall. I make mistakes. I drift off course. I suffer. But I have a treasure chest of tools, of resources that I can make use of so I can stand back up one more time than I fell. And one of those tools is the magnificent blessing of the power tool of forgiveness, which is the topic of tonight's conversation. So let me tell you a little bit about how tonight's going to unfold. It's going to be more of a conversation. We'll spend an hour exploring forgiveness today, what forgiveness is, what it isn't. And more importantly to me, you're going to have some opportunities to explore using the raw materials of your life so you can go home and make good use of the information. Because I love the fact that you came here to be with me tonight. Thank you. And I love that there are books for us to read, and I love there are YouTubes to watch. But if we don't take action on the insights that are revealed to us, all of it is just information. And if you want to change your life, you have to engage and participate and experiment and discover what's useful for you and what works for you. It doesn't matter if it works for me. It matters if it works for you. So I'm going to make the evening so you can see how to work it, to give you little things that you can do at home to change your life for the good. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Good. Also, we only have an hour, and forgiveness is a rich topic worth exploring. So if you're interested in more information, I invite you to write to me. My email address is on the bottom of the form, and I have an MP3 audio and some additional handouts to enrich your experience. Plus, on Saturday, I'm doing a 3-hour workshop here, The Art of Calm and Chaos. And in that, we will also be touching upon forgiveness, because forgiveness is an amazing tool that helps us step into peace. Beyond that, in January, I'll be doing a 4-week class where you can participate from your phone in order to take the topic even deeper, because I can tell you from my personal experience, learning the art of self-forgiveness has changed my life. And because I've been working with people for over 30 years, I can tell you with lots of evidence how it changes the lives of the people that I work with. And I want you to have that gift. So tonight's topic is the power of forgiveness. So let's look at the words. I think finding the definition of words is useful, or if I don't like the definition, I'll make something else up because I'm a creative being. But the word power comes from the French word pouvoir, and it means to be able. It's the capacity for action. So based on the title of this talk, forgiveness makes us powerful. Does that make sense? Because when we're not forgiving, we're going to get into that in a second. So let's go to Webster, and Webster says forgiveness is giving up resentment, againstness, or the desire to punish, to absolve, to set free, to release from some obligation or servitude. So who do you think we're setting free when we forgive? And yet we're told it's always about the other guy. We're going to forgive them, give them absolution. But the truth is we set ourselves free. We forgive for ourselves. We give ourselves the gift of forgiving. Because what happens when we don't forgive? What happens to you when you don't forgive? Because everybody here, except for me, because I'm an extraterrestrial today, but everybody else in the room is human. So if you're human, the reason we have a tool of forgiveness is because sometimes we need it because we're not forgiving. So what happens in your life when you're not forgiving? I call it being in a state of unforgiveness. So just call it out. Raise your hand, say angst. Conflicts. Fear. Resentment. Tension. Anger. So raise your hand if these feelings are familiar. Being human on the planet, everybody's hand should go up, even you. Pia Melody in the 70s said, resentment is a poison you drink hoping the other person will die. And that's pretty much sums up what happens when we refuse to get off our position and forgive. But I think the problem is we don't know what forgiveness is. So we don't know what to do. And my intention tonight is that you're going to go home understanding what forgiveness is and why you give yourself the gift when you participate. So it's not a big deal that sometimes we drift into unforgiving. Life's like that. Life happens. And sometimes we go, ooh. It's when we stay there. That's the problem, when we don't shift back into an open space of full participation in our lives. Now, there's a reason that happens. Now, you want to remember we have minds. Everybody have a mind? Is it talking right now? Probably. You're supposed to be listening to me. Wait a minute. So our minds are our survival tool, because back in the days when we were on the savannah and our only friend was a pointy stick, and we heard a sound in the bushes, the mind would go, what does this mean? What do I do? What does this mean? What do I do? And it's trying to assess what action it could take for the greatest chance of survival. Or, what does this mean? Is it going to eat me? Or can I eat it? That's also part of the survival mechanism. The problem is we don't know that that's always going on. And now there is no saber-toothed tiger lurking in the bushes. And the mind is still asking itself, what does this mean? What do I do? And it doesn't know what to do when somebody takes its parking spot or cuts it off on the road. So it makes stuff up. It's a meaning-making machine. It's always making things up. And that is wonderful. It's a gift of the mind because it's where our creativity comes from. Because nothing, there's nobody, other animal sitting on blue chairs with cell phones that they just turned off on the planet. We made all that up. So when we use the mind with intention and a purpose, how it can reference the past and imagine a future and engage in activity now, it can be useful to us. But when it's using us, it's not such a good experience. And let me give you an example of so you can see this and remember this, hopefully. I was given a ditty, somebody shared a ditty with me, a little poem, many, many years ago, that demonstrates this meaning-making mechanism of the mind. Can you repeat that after me? The meaning-making mechanism of the mind, okay? So here it goes. Oh, the siren sounded. The dishwasher broke. The siren broke the dishwasher. We do that. Things happen, and the mind wants to know why it happened, so it makes it up, and then we start to believe our own propaganda. And raise your hand if you've ever done something like that. Like, I remember misplacing things, and I was sure I know who took it. Of course, it was me, but it would always, the mind would just go into this search engine thing. Well, where did it go? Who did this to me? So, So what kind of stories get triggered when we end up in disturbance and unforgiveness? Like, what do you know? You've all been around long enough to know what happens in there. Negative.
You go deeper into feeling rotten.
Feeling rotten. So what's the story? Thank you. What's the story we're telling ourselves that provoke feeling rotten stuff?
That what we did was really good, no good.
So if I'm upsetting myself because of my actions, what I did was bad or wrong. Stupid mistakes that shouldn't have happened. Or what about if it's about the other person? They took advantage of me, and that's a no-no. What else? Betrayed me. And that shouldn't have happened.
And it's recurring thoughts.
Oh, recurring thoughts, that's right. It's never ending. It's the same thought over and over that just gets put onto a different circumstance.
Like feelings hurt. You were hurt.
Yeah, they hurt my feelings. They shouldn't have done that. Can you see the universal word should in there? The should monster gets activated. I call them the misery-making mechanisms of the mind. They're the mind monsters. And the one that's really relevant to our conversation today is the should monster. Everybody know that one? It's should, shouldn't, right, wrong, good, bad. How dare they violate my standards of reality? Who do they think they are? And that's what we're doing. We're arguing with reality. Because life's the way it is, and we don't like it that way. It should be the way I wrote it down in my planner this morning. Raise your hand if you ever have had a day, maybe that's ever had a day when things went according to your expectations. Not even one day. One day, he slept all day. Life, John Lennon said, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And then we don't like it and we argue and we end up in this conversation with ourselves that life is doing me wrong. And whoever delivered it, whether it's that car in front of me or the Comcast agent on the phone, or it doesn't matter who it is, it shouldn't be going down that way. And somebody's going to pay for it. So my definition of insanity is holding on to thinking that doesn't match reality. I mean, that's nuts. And it provokes what I call crazy brain. Do you like my therapeutic terminology? Mind monsters, crazy brain. You might as well have a good time with your human experience because sometimes it's quite laughable. And that's a good way to shift. So a lot of my clients show up in my office miserable, because they're stuck in that place of unforgiveness. And it's not like they're on purpose trying to hurt themselves, but they don't know any better. Because this is a culture that really has taught us to be victims to circumstance. And we're now at a time period where we're shifting into a more empowered stance where we realize we're the creators of our own outcomes, that we can live by design. But a lot of us and a lot of our cultural stories give us messages that victims win. It's just not true. So people come in with too much reality TV and too many soap operas and too much people suing because they spilled hot water in their lap and too much of a lot of stuff. And they're hurting. For example, I had a woman come to me a while ago. We'll call her Penny because that's not her name. And she wanted me to help her divorce her husband. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but there's the internal getting ready. And she'd been married 34 years, 2 children, 2 grandchildren. And something had happened more than a decade ago, and she couldn't get over it. She still, no matter how she was still pickling herself in the resentment, drinking the poison. And she thought the only way into a better life would be to leave. But she didn't realize she was going to take her crazy brain with her. And so I said to her, well, why don't we just slow this down? If that's what you want to do, that's my job, is to serve your outcomes. What I think is none of anybody's business. I'm here to serve you. But are you willing to do an experiment with me? Are you willing to address the pain in your head before you address some real, big changes in your life? And so she was a go. So it's not the situation. The situation wasn't even real anymore. It happened more than 10 years ago. It was her judgments on the situation that were driving her to a place that was driving her out of her marriage with a willingness to break up this family. So it's the judgments, not the situation. I know somebody who has been holding on to resentment for 40 years, and she refuses to consider an alternative and will die with that. Because somehow she believes that's serving her. Now, that's an extreme example. You may not be living in that, but if you're human, I bet you every single one of you, myself included, has something going on where we're holding a little bit of againstness towards something, someone, even if that's ourselves. So let's look at why do we do that? Why do we hold on to unforgiveness? Because if you think about it, when we living under the should monster, the tyranny of the should monster, there's a diminishment in our physical well-being. There's a constriction. It makes us more vulnerable to negativity physically. We experience the negative side of the emotional realm, as you all spoke about. Our mind is closed. It's only good, bad, black, white thinking, right, wrong. And we cut off access to source, to our spirit, because we're just closed. Why would we do that to ourselves? Obviously, we think we have a good reason. Or at least our personality egos. See, we are going to go home with a better personality because I'm going to show you another way to be in the world. So why would we do that to ourselves? What a guess. Say that? To prevent ourselves from being hurt again. We think it's protection. That's true. What else? Yes?
We believe that we're right.
Uh-huh. And so if we're right, what's the other person?
Wrong.
And so what? So you're right, they're wrong. What are you doing by withholding? By being in unforgiveness? Might you be punishing them? Is it a way to administer justice? Because what happened was unfair. They betrayed me. I'm going to show them. So it's a way for us, when we're in victim consciousness, to think we can take authority and power in this situation when really we don't realize how we're diminishing ourselves. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you just don't know how to fix what you've done wrong.
So you don't know how to fix what you've done wrong. So then what? So then you just want to unforgive yourself?
So then it's like you don't get to the forgiveness because it's still here.
Right. Okay. So you don't know how to engage, so you just kind of give up and just stay in the bad feelings.
Yeah, because you don't know how to get out.
So you feel helpless, yeah. Yeah, so there's also, thank you. Some people get really identified with being the wronged person. They create a whole ego structure around that. I'm the victim. And in that, there's a payoff of not having to take responsibility for their life here and now because they're so wounded, because that thing happened. Now, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I told you I'm human also. No, none of us is innocent, and none of this is wrong. This is an opportunity to wake up and see there are other choices. So what I want you to do now is just turn to somebody, and just find a partner, and we're going to play with the should monster, okay? So I want you to kind of scan in there about some of the familiar shoulds you live in. So this is how it's going to go. First of all, find your partner, so you can do that now. And if you need to be 3, that's fine. And raise your hand if you're going first. Okay, so person A is going to go, I shouldn't be kept on hold for 10 minutes before I get to talk to a real person when I need help. Okay, then now person B is going to go, my sister should respond to my text faster than 3 days. And then the other one goes, my mother shouldn't complain so much. I should exercise more. Oh yeah, I should stop eating sugar. So you want to just go back and forth with what are some shoulds or shouldn'ts that live inside of you. I would encourage you to have a good time with this. I mean, I'm sure you won't have enough time, and I'm only giving you 1 minute. Train's coming, that means shush. It's only 1 minute. I bet you, were you having fun with that?
Yeah.
Yeah? So what did you find out? What was that like? You got a lot of rules in there?
It's like too many choices to decide which one to say.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of rules about how the world should be. And just notice how come you're so irritated as you go through your day. Because life is certainly thwarting you with doing it the way life does. Not the way it should be doing it according to you. And I bet you if you kind of took a poll around the people, we might actually have different standards of measurement. Just maybe. So while we're running around holding grudges, other people are clueless. We're upset with them. We don't realize that they may have not responded to your email out of interest of conserving your time. So you have to open an email and says thanks. It's just like one less thing for you to do. And you're sitting there going, well, they should have responded and said thank you. And now they're packing their bags to go to Hawaii, and they don't even know you're sitting there in your stew. They're just off to get their lei and their little Honolulu honey, right? Or Honolulu suntan. You know, so again, we have to just really pay attention to who is causing our distress. Are you getting a clue as to who that might be?
Ourselves. Yes.
Yeah, I bet you don't like that answer. So we're going to play another game. So with that same person, I want you to decide who's partner A and who's partner B again. And it's going to be different this time, okay? So partner A is going to be the perturbing finger. Okay, so partner A is the perturbing finger. So do this if you're partner A. And partner B is the receiver of the perturbing finger, which looks like your hand. Okay? So what we're going to do is the perturbing finger from one person is going to touch the skin of the other person, and then, make it in, touch it. First, ask permission if you can touch them, of course, because this is 2018. And then when you pull your finger away, notice what is going on the skin. So go ahead and do that. So what happened?
Change color.
It changed color. Is that universally recognized that there is a white dot?
Yes.
Okay. So who made the dot? Raise your hand if the perturbing finger made the dot. Okay, it's most of the room. Raise your hand if the receiving of the finger made the dot. One person, two people. Okay, everybody, take your perturbing finger and touch a piece of your cloth and see if there's a white dot. Is there a white dot here? No white dot. Answer to the question, revision time. You get a second chance. I'm not going to fail anybody. Who made the dot? That's right, your skin made the dot. This is just the external influence that precipitated your body's reaction to the perturbance. You are a white dot waiting to happen.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Oh boy. But don't we go through life and go, I'm a white dot because of you? I'm upset and it's your fault because your finger did it. Right. So I talk about this in my book, and I run into someone who was reading my book, and he says, I had to put the book down after chapter 6. That's where it is. I go, why? He goes, that white dot thing blew my mind. I just couldn't think straight for 2 weeks late. Really, this is a big deal. You are a white dot waiting to happen.
Boy.
And so that little story about who's to blame for this fix I'm in, raise your hand. Yeah. So this is the good news. I call this the finger revolution. So you might as well be a finger revolutionary with me and turn that blame finger back to yourself with gratitude. Because if you're a white dot waiting to happen and someone inadvertently, for whatever reason, banged into you and you're now upset, you get to heal that. You didn't even know you were a white dot waiting to happen until it revealed itself. So you could learn to say, why, thank you for pointing out where my next level of personal work is. Because I don't want to be that reactionary to my life, to life happening, and I'm always upset. What do you think about that? I mean, it can drive us out of a marriage, right? This woman was willing to leave her marriage because she was convinced this white dot that was now inflamed and infected had something to do with out there. You with me? Mm-hmm. Any questions or comments so far? So the truth is, when we forgive, the only person we take off the hook is who? Yeah. It has nothing to do with the other person. We do it to take our power back. It nourishes our sense of well-being on all levels. Physically, we're more resilient. We have greater capacity. It nourishes our immune system. We get to live in the emotional range of joy and happiness and peace and calm. Our mind opens to possibilities. And we reconnect to the source, the spirit in us. Not that the spirit ever left us, but we open back up and we allow the blessings of the spirit to come into us again. I'm wanting to motivate you to choose forgiveness because we don't want to. Because you know all those times you don't want to, right? Right. Because we're right and we like being right. Gives us a little adrenaline hit.
Well, you know, when it's whose fault, I've always known it was my fault.
But maybe it's not about fault. Maybe it's not about whose fault is it. It's about life happened, now what? So there was a misunderstanding. So let's do this. Ready? Another game? Now you're going to take your hands in your lap like good little boys and girls and just fold your hands. And now what I want you to notice is whether your right thumb or left thumb is on top. All those with left thumb on top, raise your fist. Okay. All those with right thumbs on top, raise your fist. Okay, about 2/3, 1/3. It's often closer to 50-50, but so which one's right? The right? The right is right? Yours is right? Which one's that?
Right is right.
Right's right. Who says the left is right? Okay, your partner there has a very, and now I just want you to take this home and wonder how this plays in your relationship. Okay, so now what I want you to do is switch them. How does that feel?
Not good.
Does it feel wrong?
Yeah.
Is it wrong or is it just not familiar?
Sounds unnatural.
Unnatural, that's right, it's unnatural. But a lot of people just say it just feels wrong. Right?
Yeah,
It's not, it's just different. It's not what we're familiar with. But just something as little as that could make us, we could start to go, it shouldn't be that way. Right. It could, I love these girls. It could be as trivial as, which way do you hang the toilet paper? Okay, you're laughing because have you ever gone in and gone, this is wrong? They don't know how to hang the toilet paper? Raise your hand, come on. So which way is it? Is it hanging out or hanging in? Which way is the right way? Thank you. I agree. That's right. It is. Now, that's the only thing in the whole world that is right. There's only one right way to hang the toilet paper. It's the way I do it. I mean, years ago, I found myself in someone's bathroom, and I was so irritated. It was way before I understood what I'm teaching you today. And I changed there. I was in someone's house, and I turned the toilet paper around. It was bothering me so much, and I thought I'd teach them a lesson. All right. Da, 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 da. Okay, so can you see that? What's 1/2 of 8?
4.
That's the right answer. What's 1/2 of 8?
4.
2 zeros. What's 1/2 of 8?
8.
Oh, we do have a Martian in the room. What else is one? What? 8?
0. 2 zeros.
2 zeros. So what else is 1/2 of? That's a right answer. 2 zeros is a right answer. We'll make 8 a right answer. They'll have to show me how. 2 8s?
8.
Oh, 8. That's brilliant. I love that. I never heard that before. That's true. That's another right answer. So we have 3 right answers. Is another one?
What's the third right answer?
8.
Okay.
We're going to take that one. Remember I said in the beginning, a world we're open to discover other points of view? There's one more right answer that I know about, but maybe someone else can bring a new one in the room. How about a 3 and an E kissing each other? An E and a 3. Four right answers. What kind of crazy world is this? It's a crazy world. But there's only one right answer, right? It's the toilet paper goes out. Okay, this is like a really bad picture, but it's good enough, serves our purposes. So this is a big giant beach ball. Pretend it's right here. It's really bad, sorry, right? But it's fun bad.
Very unusual.
So it's right here in the middle of the room. It's so big that this person is looking at it, and what is this person seeing? What color is the ball to this person who's looking at it? Black. But this person says what? Oh no, you're totally wrong. It's
White.
and this person says,
Half and half.
which half is which?
The right side is dark and the left side is
And this one says,
the opposite.
uh-huh. So who's right?
Depends on your point of view.
Point of view, that's right. Because you guys looking up here can't see the chairs in the back. And I don't remember what's back there, but you do know it. But that doesn't mean that doesn't exist just because I can't see it. But we go into this place when we don't recognize that this is a world where there's more than one right answer. And we think it shouldn't be that way. Life should be much different than that. It should be the way I think it is, not the way it really is. I love your answer. I finally got it. So I call this the new math. 1 plus 1 equals 3. It's a world where there's allowed for more than one right answer, where you plus me equals something greater than the whole. That actually your ability to see what I can't can enhance my life and contribute to me, and vice versa. If I'm willing to embrace and welcome another way of seeing reality. 8. Was it you who made that up? It's good. So we're going to play another game. And you're going to turn to the same person, and we're going to do something, not just yet. I kind of gave you a little bit of kick at it. So we're going to play with the should again. Because the more we can undermine this should monster, the more room there is. Because when I tell myself I should call my mother, even if I call her, it's going to feel because I feel obligated. But if I said, I could call my mother today, it's like, and I also could not call my mother today. I have choice. There's space around that. So when we turn, it's such a great trick, at least in English, where we turn should to could. We open up possibilities, and then we move back into that really powerful place we all have, which is the freedom to choose what serves us best, versus living under the dictatorship of the should monster when there's only one right answer, and it's the should monster's right answer. And if you really pay attention to the should monster, it's always changing your mind because it always loves to make you wrong. So even if you did it this way because that's what you should do, you didn't do it quite blue enough or curly enough or something. It's never right with the should monsters. So you're just going to turn to your partner and you're going to just say, I should call my mom. Nah, I could call my mom. And then you could just go to, they shouldn't keep me on hold. And that's hard to say they couldn't keep me on hold. So they could choose not to keep me waiting so long. So you just maybe have to change the wording just a little bit to go from should into could. But just play with, I want you to have the experience of what it is when you take authority and change should to could. And just, I'm going to give you 1 minute again, and then you're going to hear the choo-choo train, okay? So what did you find out? Tell me what experience you had. I want to know. There's no guilt when you say could. It's hard to say could.
Well, it's less pressure.
Less pressure.
You wanted to it more, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, it puts you in a place of wanting to instead of the should really makes you drag your feet.
You have to do, it gives you the option of, it's not, if you tell a kid you have to do this, they likely would not want to do it, but if you say you could, hey, I'm gonna use that trick on my kid.
Oh, great. She's going to use it on her kid. She says she has more freedom to choose and she actually wants to, rather than when someone shoulds on us, we basically want, nobody, don't you tell me what to do. And we do set up a sort of a defiance in our relationships.
Like a forced to do versus choose to do. Forced to do.
Forced to do versus choosing to do.
I felt a little bit bad, like I was lowering my standards.
Like you were lowering your
I
standards.
should eat healthier, I could eat healthier. I felt like I was lowering my standards.
So I would encourage you to explore that, yeah. Because that's a way the should monster is trying to keep its foothold. I mean, those guys are tricky. You know, they're just faces of the ego, just so you know, but we don't have to do that, right? Right? Uh-huh.
Yeah, because it's like, I should do something, I could, but I don't want to.
Right, I could, but I don't want to. And then I can choose to anyway. It goes into a whole other, we live in more joy when we experience the freedom we have to choose or not choose. And whatever we choose is fine. We get to live in the consequences of our choices. And that is a better motivator. So you could choose, what were you arguing with yourself about?
I should eat healthier versus I could.
So you should or you could, and if you don't, either way, you get to live in the consequence. And at some point, you may choose to live healthier. And it's a much more organic way to move yourself forward in your life than beating yourself up with the should monster. Because even if you choose to eat healthier, you won't enjoy it. And it's not going to be steadfast and enduring. Because part of you is going to start arguing with yourself because it doesn't like to be bullied, even if you're the bully. Does that make sense? So it's not, I just tell you it's not fruitful, but why don't you try both? So you remember I told you to go home and experiment. So don't take my word for it. I've given you simple tools that you can play with so you can want to explore more. Thank you so much. Okay, so back to Penny. Remember Penny? Was ready to leave her husband, so I told her she could always divorce him. Right? That's not a trivial action. I says, why don't we just take some time and see if we can clear out the closets of the shoulds and just kind of clear the space, because when we're in unforgiveness, we're not really accessing our wisdom or our spiritual intelligence, because we're kind of shut down and grumpy and blaming that person for the white dot. So I've thought that the best way to support her would be kind of to help her open up space so she could look at her circumstances and make her best choice. And from then, I just trusted whatever that choice is would be for the highest good. And that's where I wanted her to go. And she was willing to go there with me. And so we started with forgiveness because that was the most important tool that I felt would serve her. So would you like to know what we did? Yeah. All right. So we want to look at the word forgive. So it's not against, we're for. So against giving is, what did I call that before? Unforgiveness. We're against giving, so we're withholding. We're not participating. We're punishing people. We're blaming them for the poison that's running through our brains. I meant veins, but both. But when I'm for giving, what is it I'm for? What would you guess?
A different outcome.
A different outcome. Anybody else? For. What am I for?
Giving.
Giving. For giving what?
Yourself.
So this is tricky because this is why I think people don't understand what forgiveness is. In this beautiful book, it's a very old book, I love it, but years ago I found the key in here. It's called Forgiveness, the Key to the Kingdom, with John Roger wrote it. And he said something in there that, to me, points us in the direction where we want to go. He says, love is forgiving. Love is for the giving. So when we're forgiving, we're choosing to love. Does this make sense to you? And we start with ourselves, because remember what we said before, we forgive for ourselves first. And what we want to forgive is, how we forgive is to choose to love ourselves instead of when we recognize we're in this self-created place of suffering through the process of unforgiveness. So what is loving? Loving is multifaceted and infinite in its expression. So loving could just be the simple act of, I choose not to hurt myself anymore, and I welcome and I'm willing to move into loving and peace. That in itself is a step into love. And then we can, anything we do, pointing ourselves in the direction of the willingness to move back into the loving, to give ourselves the blessing of the loving, is a loving action. So people think it takes forever to forgive. As soon as you start the process, you're in the forgiveness process. You're in the business of loving. So there's a passage in Luke, and it says, forgive and thou shalt be forgiven. I don't know, has anybody heard that one? It's kind of popular. So do you think, I never knew what that meant. It's like if I forgive, like then I'm going to be absolved and something out there is going to forgive me. Because I said, now I'm being a good girl because I'm forgiving. And it just kind of felt like off for me. So when we look at that statement with this new definition of forgiveness, it's give love and thou shalt be given love. Well, is that the same thing? Something out there is going to give me love? So imagine, in order for me to give love, I need to step into the loving that lives inside of me so I can give it. In that moment, I am receiving loving. Do you see how transformative forgiveness is? And then, regardless of circumstances, I'm good. And I have also come home to myself, because who we are is the loving. I have remembered myself back to myself because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired of being upset at life for doing what it does. The moment I choose to give love, I become the loving. So how do we make that choice to forgive? I hope I've shared enough information with you and you've had enough insight to realize, why would I do that to myself? I mean, I'm personally closer to the end of my life than I am to the beginning, and every day I realize how precious this gift is. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. Why would I want to spend my time in disturbance? And it doesn't mean I don't upset myself, please. But I am growing more and more sensitive and unwilling to stay there very long. And that's the key. The key is the willingness. The willingness brings the ability. And what we have to do is be willing to give up our judgments, to stop pretending we know when we do not know. So when we forgive the judgments that we put on the experience. So these people, this guy didn't know. He doesn't know that the ball is gigantic and both black and white. Just don't know. When we're here in the human form, we can't see everything. We are very limited in our perspective. We have limited sight. And so when we're judging reality, we're pretending we know better than whatever it is that breathes us all. So the willingness to stop pretending we know when we don't know is a key. So I know what I want to do. So those of you who were sitting back there, you'd missed out on getting a handout. And the handout on the chairs, and so if you need one, we'll kind of get you one and you'll share with people. It's an exercise we're going to do now. And we're just going to go a little bit 5 minutes over, John. Because I really love for you to do this exercise. I'm not going to do a lot of introduction. You're going to just trust that you know how to do this, because remember I told you already know. So you already know how to do this exercise.
With another person?
With another person. Do you have this? Yeah. So this is the deal. You're only going to have 3 minutes. 2.5 minutes each. So skip the part where you go tell a big story and get to the juice of the exercise. Because nobody cares about your story. We all have one. All right? Like, it doesn't matter. That it's just enough for you to say, what disturbs my peace is my mother. It doesn't matter. She has dementia, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. It's just a way to waken up the disturbance inside of you. And then go ahead and finish the questions. And when I'll toot the horn when 2.5 minutes goes, and then you'll switch. If you can't finish the exercise, it's fine. That means you talk too much. No, it's fine. It's there for you to take home and put by your bedside, because you tuck yourself at every night, forgiving yourself for judging. But so that's one of those practical tools I'm giving you tonight, but I want you to do it here and now. Okay? If you really are having any trouble, raise your hand and I'll come over to you, okay? So go ahead and start. So bring that to a close and go ahead and switch and make sure the second person has time to do the exercise. Did that already? All right. How was that? Tell me what the experience was like for you. Anybody have anything they want to share from that? Any insights or ahas or reckonings? Yes?
We were talking about it and we thought, it's really easy to do the forgiveness for the smaller stuff, the stuff that doesn't make a lot of difference. But when it starts coming to the people that are really, really in your life, friends, family, that are really, this is a hard thing. Because there's layers of problems, and I mean, it's not just as easy as saying, oh, okay.
Well, I really appreciate.
It keeps coming back at you.
So I'm going to say it again out loud for the listening audience. So you were saying that it's easy for the little things, the so-called trivial things, but when we're dealing with people who are in your life on an ongoing basis, it's more challenging because there's so many layers. And I appreciate you bringing that into the room. It's true. Forgiveness is a process. I mean, it's like you take a shower. You probably, while you're in your shower, it'd be good to just do a forgiveness process. Because the mind is a judging machine. We're always judging. We're always making good, bad, right, wrong. It's going to happen. And there's reasons why the mind is like that. It comes from when we were tribal in a much smaller communities, and it doesn't matter right now. But thank you. So it's hard. It takes practice. It takes the discipline to pay attention when I'm listening to the should monster. And it could be a way of living, is to be someone who practices the art of forgiveness ongoingly. Yes?
I was just going to say, I think it's harder to forgive yourself.
So harder to forgive herself than other people. Did anybody find that exercise useful? Thank you. Yeah? How so? What was useful about it?
It's easy to get away from judgment.
It helped you get away from judgments. Yeah.
It's just realizing how judgment could be harmful.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? Like when you begin to judge and just the whole thing about forgive myself for judging, that made a difference for me.
So the whole thing about forgiving myself for judging, and it really helped you see how you were harming yourself. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes.
I think it happens in a surface level, it looks like it's working, but the deeper situation, it has to be a lot more.
Yes. It's layers. That's right. And we only had a certain amount of time here, and I kind of moved you through it quickly. So please, it was just a taste. This, like I said, forgiveness is a very rich process. And it does have to go deeper and deeper and deeper till we get to that, like pulling out a dandelion. You could pull the top off, but it's going to grow back unless you kind of dig it up at its root. So I just want to go back to Penny, and then we're going to bring this to a close. About a year after I completed working with her, she sent me this testimonial, and I'm going to read it to you because it's pretty much a summation of the work we did tonight. I came to Leslie because I wanted to leave my husband. In the very first session, she told me I could always leave my husband, but encouraged me to look at what I could do to make my life better first. Instead of supporting me in leaving, she supported me in staying and evaluating what was true and real, where I had the ability to impact my situation, how I could change in order to produce a preferred result. Over the course of our work, I discovered no matter where I go, there I am. And this actually was my issue. What I needed to deal with was something inside of me, not necessarily my geographical location or my marriage. It was an inside job. I'm now taking more responsibility for my own happiness rather than waiting for someone to make me happy, especially instead of wishing my husband saw and understood what I needed. Now I can either do it for myself or ask him, letting him know how he can help me. It seems almost miraculous, so simple, yet it has taken my whole life to get here. I'm now choosing to be aware and grateful for the good things in my life, including my husband. I just touched my heart. Yeah. So notice how this situation that was driving her away from her marriage and her family, she called a miracle. I mean, what if, pow, life happens, ow, is really the doorway to, wow, thank you for giving me that experience. What if? I mean, Penny was not the same woman when we completed our work as she was when I met her. She wasn't even the same woman that she was 10 years prior before the situation happened. She had grown into somebody greater than she would ever imagined because she chose to participate in her life and step into what it is. Why am I hurting? She chose to love herself. She showed up for herself. What if those white dots are blessings in disguise, waiting to be activated by our loving attention? Why do I have a white dot? Why am I hurting? How can I bring loving to the place that hurts? This is an inside job. Thank you for banging into me. Now I know what needs to be healed inside of me. What if life is our teacher? Remember we talked about educating us? What if life steps forward and disturbs our peace to call forward something even more than we knew that we are? To wake us up to our loving essence, the precious presence of the blessing we are. What if? This is where we started, opening ourselves up to be educated, to remember what we forgot. You could choose to let life wake you up. You could choose, rather than withdrawing participation in a world that doesn't make sense sometimes, to find a way to step forward in the giving. You could choose to be forgiving. You could choose to be forgiving us the blessing of your loving heart. So I wish that may you live in the blessings of forgiveness, the blessing of love, the blessing of peace, and the blessing of joy. Thank you.
Okay, say someone deeply hurt me, and I chose to forgive that person, but they did it again, and I chose again to forgive that person, but I can't forget it. What do I do?
Well, I would challenge you in your assessment that you forgave them, because they still can hurt you. So your white dot still appears when they bang into you. You still have a story about how they shouldn't have. Now, we don't forget what happened. Wisdom comes from making sense of our wounds. So we want to learn from the experience and take the blessing of that learning with us. We just forget the negativity. So we take the blessing, the goodness that was revealed to us, and we pretty much forget the circumstances. And what may have been revealed to you is that you choose not to participate in that person's life anymore. And that may make good sense. That may be good wisdom. So you may have learned a lot of things in the course of that. But you don't have to forget. You forget the negativity. You let go of the upset. And you bring forward with you the gifts that the experience brought. And if you don't know what they are, then I would challenge that you haven't forgiven the forgiveness process. Finish the forgiveness process.
I can agree with that. Wait a minute. I can agree with that, but sometimes these things get buried deeply, and how do you get it out of there? You know, I think that even if you choose forgiveness, it's still buried in there, right?
This is like a question someone would come in and present at the beginning of a process of engagement over a course of time. It's not, I would be doing you a dishonor and a disservice to give you a very brief answer to that. I would encourage you to, there's lots of books, there's information in my book, there's I'm happy to talk to you someplace else about that, but that deserves much more time and attention than I can give right now. There's a lot of material that we covered tonight that could be useful to you, so when you leave, you can replay it. You can do the homework, the exercise we did with this again. You know, just kind of like, this is new to you, so kind of like feel into some of the concepts and take them into consideration.
Well, my question was in line with that too. So I'm really grateful for all the information that you provided us with. I think it's really helpful. And I totally see how it facilitates someone's healing process after the fact. Like, you know, we've been hurt or whatever. But yeah, I pretty much had the same thought when we started talking about this. How does the power of forgiveness play in someone who is currently in an abusive relationship, for example, or, you know what I mean, or an acute state of emotional pain, being hurt?
So there's, you know, forgiveness, you know, sometimes you just have to take remedial action and get the person to safety. Clearly, that would be the number one priority. This becomes a whole other journey. Yes, you said after the fact. You don't, when someone's punching you in the face, you don't go, I forgive you. Or you do go, I forgive you, you can get out of the room and call 911. I mean, let's be reasonable. Okay, so then maybe later when things calm down, the nose is reset, you know, we can work on a forgiveness process.
It's not so much a question as just like a profound thing that was interesting. I liked what Penny said, that she, you know, when she was in that position, she decided to either do it herself, like if she, you know, she wasn't saying you should do this, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to make my life what it is. And then, or to ask for something, like if she asked her husband for things. So I think that a lot of times we think if that person is doing something, I'm just going to write him off. I'm not going to think about him. But there's some interaction that you can do to make it better or do things yourself. I just think that there's so much, it's the power,
That's right.
of
It's the power to
forgiveness
engage in new
that,
action.
Yeah, it can go in so many different ways. So it's
Well, I'm
just
glad
really
that was
interesting.
helpful to you, because we didn't just work on forgiveness with Penny. I mean, one of the things we worked on is the art form of making requests, because so many of us think people should read our minds, and then we go, well, you should know that I need it, and so that it gets into another part of crazy brain, and we forget that we were given a mouth and tongue and language so that we could speak our requests and see if we can negotiate cooperation with other people. And that's a really big skill set that many of us could develop more, because requests are one of the most powerful actions in the world. Just as an example, it's a different topic, but if I'm thirsty and I ask John, would you do me a favor and get me a glass of water? I bet you in a few moments I'll have a glass of water and I didn't even have to move. I mean, that's how powerful requests are. Anybody else? Forgiveness brings up a lot of hurt. It's a big topic, and that's what I said. In an hour, I don't pretend I'll be able to answer some of your questions, because there's a lot of emotions that get disturbed and riled up. But what my intention is that you could leave here realizing you're not a victim to your past, you're not a victim to your thinking about the past, and you're not a victim to your hurt feelings. That there is a resource that you can make use of that can free yourself of that. I mean, it took me once 11 years to forgive somebody. Before I was really understanding this. Because it's a process, and I had to find the places inside myself where I was doing it to me. And I was very young at the time, and I didn't understand that I could do that to myself. So but this is an education. Remember, we're calling forward possibilities that perhaps you didn't see before. So thank you.
I love these tools. These are great.
You love
the tools you've
you're
given us.
welcome.
Are there any personality traits that hang on to lack of forgiveness more than others, like self-confidence? Are there any sort of traits in a person?
I don't think it matters. I mean, if you're stuck, and you want to get free. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, green, purple, a Myers-Briggs INTF, or a, ESJP, or whatever they are. It doesn't matter. If you're unhappy, let's go for freedom. So it's just like if you want to know if somebody or this, then you're just back in the mind trying to have a well-analyzed problem instead of taking the action towards freedom. So I'm not going to go there with you, because so what?
Yeah, the tools you presented are very, very simple and effective. The question I was asking is, before we go into forgivingness, that is the time I'm doing my part. These are some of the values are violated from me and from you. I am making a commitment to make the value adjustment, and I want you to make the value adjustment, and that's the best time to negotiate.
So right away you're in their business.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can make a request that they change their mind. I mean, that's all fine, but everybody has the freedom of choice. And like that man beautifully brought into the room earlier, nobody wants to be told what to do.
Yeah, I think it's as long as it's a request level, it's okay. Otherwise, a person feel like I am giving in too much without the other person not doing,
Oh, see, now you're playing the game. I'll go, you go first, and then I'll go.
Yeah.
If you give 10, I'll give 10, and now maybe I'll give one more. We don't do that. We just go full out into the loving, and then you're free. It doesn't matter about anybody else. They can play the game of love with you or not. Like, why would you want to hold yourself back from the freedom and the joy of being in your loving?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking that. I mean, everybody who speaks represents all of us. We all try to have a well-analyzed story about why I'm this way, or maybe if they would, I would. Everybody speaking is speaking for all of us.
Leslie, would you say, if I may ask a question as well, would you say that the act of forgiveness is your choice, but then the act of, as far as the external situation, whether you stay or you go or you associate or you don't associate, you're not going to put yourself in a bad situation. That's
No,
a
of course not.
completely different thing.
Forgiveness brings you to peace. But then you use your peaceful intelligence to decide where you're going to put your body, like John said. I mean, it doesn't mean you let the person back in your life. It doesn't mean you condone their behavior. It doesn't mean you're in alignment with their standards. No, if you need to get yourself out of harm's way, you do that. If this person triggers you to a place where there's no way you can have peace, and working on forgiveness really is, Penny's story didn't have to turn out that way. She could have got really clear that after 34 years, she still cared about and loved her husband, and she's not leaving out of resentment, but she just chose to move on. That could have been also a very possible outcome. This one just happened to turn out this way.
So I have a question not regarding what I'm going through, but somebody very close to me is suffering because something traumatic happened to that person in their childhood. And I believe in reincarnation, and I believe that things happen for a reason, and he needs to heal from whatever. Those things happen because there's a healing that needs to happen in order for him to get to the higher level, or for his soul to learn the lesson to go to the next level, wherever it needs to be. But so then he would say to me, so you think that I asked for that horrible thing to happen to me, or are you saying I deserve to have that had happen to me? And that's very hard to accept for somebody who's suffered a traumatic experience, right?
So you want to know how to help him?
Huh?
You want to know how to help him?
Yes.
So you kind of go neutral. Again, life happens. So we don't have to say, I deserved it, I set it up, it's from another lifetime. It doesn't matter. It happened. Now what? Now what is the power move? So if you don't do a now what, you stay in the suffering. So whatever the reason is, whether it's your karma from your 72 lifetimes ago, and I'm not trivializing that, none of it matters. What matters is right now, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to bring the healing balm of self-compassion, self-forgiveness, and loving to the place that hurts and heal it once and for all, now and forever, so you don't have to create another lifetime to deal with it then. Let's not avoid the relationship with our lives. So participation is key. So that whole thing, it's just like more of him being, my heart goes out to him also. He's hurting. And he's trying to understand, why am I hurting? Do you think I deserved it? So, that's just...
Say, no, you don't deserve it. Obviously, nobody deserves any abuse or anything.
So it's like, let's move you forward into finding a way to heal. It's people just love to bring you into their story versus help them come into the place of loving action. And it's just what human beings do. It's not a judgment against anybody. We just have to be aware of what it is to be human and what it is to really be a spiritual warrior, in my opinion. It's to stand up in the truth that I am love and to take action in the now and change my life for the good. So I'm living a life that more represents the truth of me, which is I'm not a victim. Thank you.
So first, where do you suggest we start? Forgiving ourselves or forgiving others?
Yes,
what would be a good starting point?
You're thinking too much to do it. I mean, it's like you don't have to think about it. Just do the exercise. I forgive myself for judging myself as, not for. I forgive myself for judging myself as bad. I forgive myself for judging myself as ugly. I forgive myself for judging myself as stupid. I forgive myself for judging George as hurting me. I forgive myself for judging George as thwarting me. I forgive myself for judging my mother as abandoning me. Just pour it out. It's like the plates on the cafeteria. You pull one, the next one comes. Go. Don't think about it. Just, what's the next judgment? What's the next judgment? And it's like you're getting rid of it. You're getting rid of it. It's a sickness. It's been in there. It's been festering. It's the poison you drank. Just spew it out. Don't think about, well, who should I go first? Should I do my first grade teacher? She was really mean to me. Who cares? Just get the garbage out of the house. Doesn't matter which room you start in.
Okay.
What's the second question?
Second question, I was wondering if you heard about Ho'oponopono practice.
Yes.
And do you have any comments about that?
Have you ever used it?
Yeah.
So what is your comment about it?
Oh, what's my comment about it? Sometimes it's really hard because sometimes it's really easy, sometimes it's really hard because it just, doesn't, like you don't believe in it. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're not the place to even, you're not ready to ask for forgiveness.
So I think the practice is beautiful. I think it's one of many paths to freedom, taking responsibility. So if I look at you and I say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. It's like I'm looking at her and I'm saying, I honor you as me and I see you're hurting and I'm extending my loving to that. It's another way to be the blessing of loving and participate. And yeah, the ego doesn't want to. Remember, the ego thinks it's right. And she's upset and I'm not that. So if you find it hard, it's not that it's hard, it's that you're just taking out the garbage of the parts of you that don't want to participate in the loving. Does that make sense? So the parts that are hard are the parts that don't want to. It's the parts that drank the poison. Or maybe you're in the back, bubble, bubble, toilet trouble, making poison.
Just a comment about the Hawaiian prayer, because I don't know how to pronounce that. But my husband discovered that earlier this year, and he loves it so much and has found it so healing for him. He doesn't say it to anyone that's in front of him, but like when he goes and swims or runs, he just goes through it. And he has found that, like when it's it's the I love you, please forgive me, whatever you said. I can never remember all four of them. But he said that he found that he'll think of someone and then he'll say, please forgive me. And then it kind of comes to him. Like, please forgive me for being resentful for you. Or like something comes up that he, asked for forgiveness for. I mean, because again, he swims for, and he just continues to say it and thinks about his father or his son or his wife or something. And he finds that as he just continues to say it, then it expands for him, and it's very, it's been more for him, and that's what I think. I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting.
So what I love about that example is, remember, these are just tools. There's no rules. So this man took that prayer or that process and made it work for him. How great is that? Take whatever I gave you today and make it work for you. Make it work for you. That's the most important thing. Not that you do it my way or the way it's written on that piece of paper. Find a way that it serves you and frees you.
I experienced, I was assaulted by a close relative, and I find that if I see the person's face, that I tend to rehearse the offense in my mind, and then I have difficulty forgiving. And so I had to remove the person out of my life. I just can't see their face. They committed a crime against me, and how would you say that might play in, rehearsing the offense, seeing the person's face?
Right, so you're re-traumatizing yourself or re-victimizing yourself. So there's a good technique that works for some people. You can see if it works for you, because even if you never see him again, your mind is going to show you pictures. So just take a big paint roller and just in your head, just white him out. And then if you want, just put something there on the white screen, put something you'd prefer to look at. I mean, if you don't like what you're looking, look someplace else. And we have that kind of dominion over the mind. Okay, thoughts appear, we can't do anything about that, but what we do next, we have dominion over. And that'll bring you some peace. And you'll also feel like you have more authority over your life. Because like John says, we don't have control over the outer world. The only two places we have any control in our lives is our choices and our actions. And we can choose not to stay or we can choose to go. Those choices, even though they're limited, they're enormously powerful. And we can choose to forgive.